Welcome back, everyone, to the Modern Sage podcast. I'm Leah Guy, your host, and I'm so glad that you're here. This is our new season. We've had a couple of episodes out already, and today is our first guest interview. And I'm really excited. I was on her podcast last year, I guess earlier this year, and now I get to host her on mine. We are talking today with Michelle Chalfant. She is like a sister to me in the world of healing. We have very much in common. She is a therapist. She is an author. She is an empowerment coach. She's a public speaker. And she's also the founder of the Adult Chair, which is both a method and a podcast. And that was the podcast that I was on. So, Michelle, I'm so happy to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me. It's great to see you again.
Yeah, you too. And what I love about having someone like you on is that we don't have to figure out so much what we're going to talk about because we could talk about anything.
That's so true. So
Yeah.
true.
Recently, I did a podcast about what I felt like was in and out for 2025.
Mhm.
And these are things that are both some physical changes that we can make, real practical things, as well as emotional and mental, energetic shifts that are happening. And one of the things that I mentioned was that was out was being a victim. So I
Ooh.
wanted to talk to you about that. I know I have had plenty of victimhoodness in my life and have had to work through that, over the years. What do you think about this topic? And do you think people are becoming more aware of it and ready to move beyond it?
What a fun podcast this is going to be. What a great question. It's interesting that you brought that word up, and I do feel like you also said the word victim, but also I think you said the word awareness. The level of awareness and consciousness on the planet just continues to grow.
Mhm.
And what I'm realizing is that people are starting to notice when they're in their victim, their controller part, their perfectionist, their people pleaser, their fraud part, whatever it might be. So I am thinking that, and I hadn't heard of this before, but I do notice that people are getting out of that, or at least wanting to, and they're wanting to because they're noticing that they're even in it. In fact, I do group coaching with people every few months, and I'm in a group right now with some people, and I was leading the group, and we talked a lot about the Dharma triangle. You got the victim, the perpetrator, and the rescuer, and we were talking about becoming aware of when you're in that victim and when you're rescuing and all these things. So it's ironic you brought that up. Literally just talking about the other night with my group, and I do think that people they're becoming aware of it and they want out, but they don't know how to get out, which is why I brought up the Dharma triangle. I said, you can't rescue and you can't prosecute. You've got to step out of it completely and see yourself in it in order to get out of it
Yeah.
completely. So,
I talk about it in the sense of taking full responsibility for our lives.
mhm.
And in my own story, I was a victim of a rape situation. And many people, for the first probably 10 years, 15 years after that, and in my work, people were asking, how did you heal? How did you heal? What did you
Mhm.
do?
Yeah.
And I think they were often surprised with my answer, which was when I stopped focusing on him and started
Mhm.
focusing on myself. Because at a certain point, and I think this is where the consciousness is really leveling up. I hope so anyway. This is part of my passion and work is that no matter what it was, and I'm not diminishing what it was, but no matter what it was that has happened to us, we are left with what is
Mhm.
and how we are rendered in that state. And it is our responsibility to deal with that. And so many people, I think, stay focused on he did this, she said
Mhm.
that. This
Yeah.
is what happened in 1997. If they hadn't been at this place, I wouldn't be here. Whatever the story is, and we just keep staying in that loop of the story and the narrative and the victim and the perpetrator, the whole thing.
Mhm.
So at some point, we have to stop. Don't you agree?
No, I 100% agree. Um, I have a new book coming out. It's called The Adult Chair in May. And
Mm,
something that's new to my audience, they don't even know about it yet, is that in addition to the adult chair, which is this model that teaches people who they are and how they got this way, are these things called the 5 pillars. And one of the pillars is exactly what you said, which is you have to take responsibility for your life. If you want to live as a healthy, functioning adult, we have to take responsibility. It doesn't mean we blame ourselves. It doesn't mean we judge ourselves. We have to get out of story and assumption. We have to be really great, what I call story busters. Like you said, like you have to stop the loop means you have to become aware that you're even looping
hmm.
and then say, I have to stop this story. And I'm going to take responsibility not for the trauma or whatever happened to us, but take responsibility for where I am right now in this very moment and
Yes.
make that decision to end the loop, to end the story. And I love the shifting of the focus. Are you focusing on this or are you focusing on yourself taking responsibility? It's interesting. I haven't, if I may share a story, and this blew my mind. My aunt lives here locally and she's in her 90s and she's very, very difficult. We just placed her in a home. She's hard to be around. She didn't used to be, but as she's gotten older, she has dementia, a little bit of dementia, but just angry
Hmm.
and hard to be around. And I don't really enjoy spending time with her. My husband, who again is not, related to her like I am, takes her once a month to church, takes her out to dinner every month. He goes and visits her more than I do.
Mm,
And I said, it bothers me that I can't do that. Why can't I do that? I said, I get so annoyed, triggered, all the things by her. And he said, you're focusing on the wrong person.
mm,
You're focusing on yourself and how you feel when you're around He said, I'm focusing on her. And I know the joy that it brings her when she gets a visitor, when she goes to church, when she goes to dinner, all the things. And he said, when you focus on someone else and that you're bringing them joy in some way, shape, or form, he said, it's not about me. And
yeah.
I was like, it literally, as Marianne Williamson says, a miracle is a shift in your perspective. And I
Right.
said, it literally was a miracle. And I said, oh my God, I get it. So the
Mm,
next time I said that he went up to see her, I said, I want to go. And we went out to lunch with her. I was not triggered. It didn't bother me. Everything she said, I just let it go. It didn't let it
yeah.
land on me. And it was the easiest and most enjoyable lunch with her like I probably have ever had. And I thought, wow, she didn't change my perspective, change my focus changed. It was
Yeah.
powerful.
It's probably easier for him in a certain way to have that perspective because he didn't have the story with her before and all that
Mhm.
went with it, right? So
Yeah.
I love that. I love that he helped shed that light onto
Yeah.
her. Yeah.
I
We
was
never
so lost in it. I'm like, what is wrong with me? How can he do this? And I thought, he goes, there's nothing wrong with you. You're just focusing on the wrong person. I was like, oh, that's it. I was like,
That's
that's it.
great.
Crazy. So good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, something else you and I have in common is we both work on inner child healing. And you
Mhm.
have a free resource. I have some other options for people, but what is your resource on your website? It's a guidebook.
Yeah, I do a lot. I mean, the inner child, I love parts work in general. I started doing parts work 25 years ago. It was one of the first things I learned when I got certified through NLP, and I just took to it and I kind of did it in my own way. I mean, it's very similar to maybe John Bradshaw and some of the people that are out there, but I have a very spiritual aspect to how I do it. So, yes, I do. I have a free resource to get people started if they don't know how to work with the inner child or they want to clear limiting beliefs or codependency and really learn how to connect in a deep way and do the clearing. That's at theadultchair.com/inner child. And these are 2 meditations with journaling prompts that take you deep. Yeah, I
That's
love
great.
inner child work.
Yeah, I do too. I think it's one of the foundational pieces for most people. The problem though is I think people get it, they start to understand it, and then we abandon things, and I am
Yeah.
always encouraging people no, this is a relationship. This is an ongoing part of our work.
Yes.
We
Yes.
have to become aware of when our inner child needs our attention for the positive or the negative, or not negative, but when they need our support and when they want to help teach us, so it's an ongoing relationship.
I think it's work that once we learn how to do it, it's something that we can do the rest of our lives.
Mhm.
Just this morning, I was out I take a morning walk every morning at like 6 or 7 a.m. I just started walking and I felt this deep sadness
Mm.
and abandonment. And I felt like, and again, logically, nobody's abandoned me that I know of. It didn't make logical sense to me. But my whole walk, I couldn't help but think about it. And it just kept coming up. I even had some tears coming down. I said, this is so interesting. Nobody's abandoned me. I don't know why I feel so sad. And I got home and I jumped in the sauna. And I do a lot of parts work in the sauna, sitting in our sauna. And I just closed my eyes and I said, and this is what I say to everybody and anybody that's having an experience like this, where you're having an emotion or a belief and you don't know where it's coming from. The first thing you ask is, at least this is how I do it, is who feels so sad? And I closed my eyes and I just tuned in and I saw this little girl and she was standing in like a black bubble and she was like in the dark, basically. She was standing in the dark and she was sitting off to my right or standing off to my right. And I said, what's happening? And she said, I'm so sad. I'm so lonely. Nobody cares about me. She went on and on. And I said, okay. And I said, I feel like you're standing in the dark. She says, I am. I'm so alone. I'm in the dark. And I said, I'm going to come and I'm going to come and get you. And I just took my hand and my eyes are closed. And I'm making this up, like really. And I
Right.
reached into this bubble with my hand and I said, can you see my hand? I'm reaching out my hand to you right now. It was right in front of her. She said, I can't see it. And then I just in my mind said, I'm going to illuminate my hand for you. And I did. And I made it glow. And then she says, oh, I see it. And I said, grab my hand. And I pulled her out of that bubble and brought her into the sauna with me. And we had this lovely dialogue. And in the end, we just started talking. And I said, I'm here with you. She says, you are. And I said, yeah, I'm always here with you. I'm always, always, always here. Anyway, with this lovely conversation, she ended up sitting on my lap. She was 6 years old and I was hugging her and she eventually just like merged and melted inside of me. And then guess what? The sadness faded. All of a sudden, all of the feelings I had all morning
Right.
were gone. Like this work is so powerful. It's so fast, yet so many of us just don't know how to do it. And it's so simple when we just pause. And that is what I find. I know that I think you see clients still, yes?
Yes. Uh-huh.
Yeah. When I work with people, we make it as humans, we make it so hard, right? Like we numb ourselves, we eat too much, we do all the things that we do, eat, drink, shop, all the things. And I know I'm guilty of these things too. But when we just slow down and just ask ourselves, who's feeling this? It just opens up a whole new world. And
Yeah.
man, it's healing.
It's very healing. I love that story. It's very visual. And another thing we have in common, I was in the sauna this morning too.
You were.
I was. Different sauna, people. Yeah, no, I love that. And I think too, what gets in a lot of people's way is in that making it more difficult, more challenging. We have to understand the power of it's not just visualizing or making things up, it's being able to resource and access
Mhm.
different parts of us, different timelines of us, different energetic parts of us. And that is very real. There's nothing more real than what we create with our own mind. And so we have the power to go
Yep.
back. We have the power to bring it forward. We have the power to travel, to open to different parts. And for me and my work, I say it very similarly, but a little bit differently of asking myself, what part of me or who's showing up today? Who's here?
Yeah.
Because sometimes we wake up, or maybe it's the middle of the day, or something happens and we react in these huge ways. And it's like, hold on a second, I don't
Mhm.
really even care that much, or, that doesn't really affect me that much, but something's going on. And we can just simply ask, like, who's here? Who's here? What part of me is here? And I
Mhm.
think it's beautiful. And I love your story because also like in meditation, there's so much that can be done in meditation, in
Mhm.
visualization work, and all these processes that seemingly we're not quote doing anything because we're
Mhm.
so attuned to this idea that something out there has to fix us, something has to change. We need these monumental big huge shifts that that we can identify somehow. But the biggest ones come from inside of ourselves. They come with our own work.
I totally agree. The answers are really all within us.
They are.
And we live in societies where we think we have to go out there
Yes.
to heal and mend what's always, always, always inside of us.
In
And
here.
I'm not saying that people should not reach out for help or guidance or
Of course.
meditations or coaches or therapists. I'm not saying that at all. But I really feel, I'd love to know what you think about this too, but I feel like if people would slow down and connect back inside, it's such a game changer. I really think this world would change. If we really got it back into our heart space and the body
Yeah.
and turned inward first
Mhm.
before going out there. It's empowering, it's healing, it's transforming. It's all those things.
Yes. I think like 90% of our work, if we can learn to
Mhm.
truly be present,
Yeah,
that's the work because it solves almost everything. It
everything.
solves almost everything, right? When
Yeah.
we're not playing the stories, when we're not in our past, when we're not projecting in the future, when we're not worrying, when we're not all the places our mind wants to take us. If we're just right here, right now,
Mhm.
90, probably 99% of the time, there's nothing wrong,
Exactly.
right?
And we don't know how to do that. We're not taught that. In
I know.
fact, we're taught the opposite
Mhm.
growing up. Here, have this, you'll feel better. Oh, let's go have an ice cream cone. Everything will go. No.
Do
But
this, do
and
that.
yeah, and I don't judge any parent. I don't judge anybody around this because they didn't know.
Mhm.
Everyone's doing the best they can. Oh, if we could only learn this at a young age, a
Right.
very young age, where that would just change our entire world if we could teach children how to feel their emotions, how to stay connected. Because when we're born, we're connected to ourselves,
Right.
right?
100%. Like so much so that we irritate everyone around us. "Rah, I need something, if we could
Yeah,
do more of that now. Yeah. Okay. So I
totally.
have a whopper of a question, maybe two whoppers. And these are the
Oh,
main questions of our talk
mhm.
today.
Okay.
How do you define the similarity and the differences of spirituality and psychotherapy, or in other words, spirit and mind? How are
Hmm.
they the same and how are they different to you? Because what I know is that as the world is waking up and as consciousness is coming, online
Hmm.
more and more,
Hmm.
that there's this crossover, and it's really beautiful, and it's also a little bit of a mess that
Hmm.
people are talking about. I'm so spiritual, or we're doing these spiritual things, and I'm sometimes going, what's spiritual about that? What part of you is in the spirit of that versus the trying to fix, the trying to change your mind, trying to have a new mindset? So where do you land with all that? Because I know you're a traditional therapist with also spiritual training, and you've kind of blended the two. How is it the same and how is it different? Maybe even just
Yeah.
look at like your work and when you're working spiritually with a person versus when you're working more as a psychotherapist with a person.
Yeah.
How is it different, or where's the overlap for you?
From the time I was young, I don't remember n- not I don't remember feeling disconnected from that spirit place, if that makes sense. I don't remember having this big awakening. In fact, when I was really young, I used to ask, I went to Catholic school and everything, and I used to ask the priests like very spiritual questions, like, what do you mean? Like, no such thing as reincarnation. I remember my like that was me at age 10. So I always had that very much alive and always felt connected to this God source, always felt connected to angels, always felt connected to spirit guides. I could feel them all around me. So when I became a therapist, that very much merged in with this, the way that I saw clients. So I was never like a quote unquote like traditional sort of psychotherapist. So for me, when I think about spirituality, I think about learning how to align with your soul.
Mhm.
That to me is spirituality. And that doesn't mean it's always flowery and easy. It means sometimes we go through what the dark night of the soul, but sometimes we go through these initiations where things are really, really, really difficult. But that's all part of the spirituality. But we don't want to do the spiritual bypass with the mind,
Mhm.
where we're not going into our pain. Like today, I could have been like, oh, it's no big, just blown it off. No, it's about turning toward and learning how to stay connected to your soul or your spirit or your higher self, whatever you want to call it, no matter what. But mind could be the subconscious or unconscious mind, which is where all of our limiting beliefs and all of the roadmap is that we created when we were, by the way, what, 0 to 6 that we're
Mhm.
living off of.
Mhm.
That to me is more the mind, versus spirituality. And I don't know, I hope I'm answering your question,
Yeah.
is like quieter. There's a flow state that we step into. I dismantled my whole company a year ago, and it was the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. And it was the greatest teaching experience of my entire life. And I don't regret any part of it. But I was literally brought to my knees, and I had 10 employees. I let everybody go. And then I knew, because I knew all last year in my soul, I could feel it. Oh my God, Leah, I could feel it. Something has to change. Everything has to change as far as how we move forward. And I loved the people that I worked with, but I knew it was like we built the airplane in order for the airplane to fly. I needed to do things differently. So to do that was so hard. I had moments where, like, in the in the movie scenes where you're on the floor in the shower, like crying, like that was me, and I couldn't
Yeah.
breathe and the whole thing. But I kept hearing my spirit or guides or whatever you want to say, just be in this and be present, to your point about being present moment. It was like a PhD program in living with presence. And I've learned now to live in this, again, no, I am not saying I'm perfect at this, but to live in present moment awareness state means I'm not thinking about even in a minute, or I'm not thinking about the minute before or the minute behind me. I'm only with you right now in this very moment. And when we're here, it's a completely different reality.
Mhm.
And I'd heard about it. Eckhart Tolle talks about it. I'd read about it. But going through what I went through last year, it was like I was forced in a beautiful way to go here, and then developing deep trust for that part of the spirit or soul to guide me, even when I'm like, oh my God, where's the money going to come from? How am I supposed to move forward? And then boom, everything would open up the next day, and then this would happen the next day, so that's living more from spirit versus mind. And again, which mind are you talking about? Because we've got the unconscious mind, the subconscious, the unconscious, the subconscious, and of course we have the ego mind, which
Mhm.
only wants to throw us in the past and the future. So I think spirituality for me is really deeply learning how to listen to that part of us. We all have it. Every single human has it, but we're not great at listening. And when we are forced to listen, or not forced, when you choose to stay in that moment and listen deeply, it will change your completely change your life.
I love that answer. And I agree with a large part of it. I think there's obviously a crossover because we are in a vessel here of our bodies that contains all of the minds and what we experience here. But that piece of learning how to function and make choices and align ourselves with our higher self and our truth, I think that
That's it.
is, yeah, I think that's the key.
And we hear that statement all the time, like, oh, I'm a spiritual being having a human experience. It's like,
Right.
no, 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 no. Really, not just think about, but feel what that means.
Mhm.
We are spiritual beings first. We are light beings that have taken on what I call this garage for your soul. That's what the human body is. And we over identify with this body. The mind over identifies with the
Yeah.
body, right?
Right. Right.
And when we can really remember that, first, I'm a spiritual being, and that's the part I want to stay connected to.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the game changer. When we have that flip in our reality,
Yeah.
then it helps us when we've gained a few pounds or lost too much
Yeah. It
weight or
doesn't
we
matter.
start aging.
Yeah.
It just doesn't matter as much. Now, the ego still has to, like, sometimes get over some of these things, but I find the more deeply I connect with my spirit and stay connected to that part,
Mhm.
the less the other things outside of me matter, because I
Yeah.
remember who I truly am.
I'm so grateful for that as I'm going through menopause because,
Yeah.
you know,
Amen, sister.
I'm grateful for two things. I think on one of my podcasts recently, I was like, can you imagine if, because we're living in this illusion of time, and what if everything just did happen at once and we woke up one day and we're like 80 years old? What a shock. So how much gratitude that I have that we get to walk through this, like, this experience and this journey and
Yeah.
gradually see changes and so forth, even when we're impatient. And so it's a gift to us to be able to walk through it like that. And secondly, I'm so glad that I love myself and my spirit and my soul and see the beauty in her, because it can be challenging when the ego comes in. You have a line there. You don't look like you used to.
God.
Everything's going a different color. It's like,
The meta,
wow.
well, what about the menopause middle?
I
Like,
literally have it hanging over my pants. I was teaching yoga yesterday. Sometimes I fill in and I had to call myself out. I was like, if you can do this pose, because all I feel right now is my Thanksgiving belly hanging on my legs. They're touching one another. And I'm not leaning forward. you know,
it's so funny. I
I know.
know. Oh my God, I get it. And I said to my sister and I was with my sister and my cousins the other day, and they were like, oh my, they're like 6 years younger than me. So they just turned 50, and they were like, boy. And I said, yeah, wait till you do, speaking of yoga, a downward dog when you have shorts on, then you'll really, and you look at your legs, then you go, what the hell is going on?
Yeah, I know. It's
What
weird.
happened to my legs? Oh,
Okay, so
it's so
speaking of this,
menopause.
this brings me right into my next question, because as sisters in the world of healing arts that we are, I'm curious from you how you experience your other self. Of course, we want to stay coherent and aligned and uh, connected to our higher self as much as possible, but we're human beings.
Yeah.
So I'd like to hear from you, or us to swap stories here about, like, where does your ugly show up? Where do you struggle?
Ooh, when I have to do a social media post.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, because I look at the video and I'm like, who's that? Like, I don't even recognize myself. Honest to God, I do not recognize myself half the time. I'm like, how did this happen? It's
Mm.
really hard, I think, from in my family growing up, I had a grandmother, and I grew up at Italian up in the north, New York. So it was like very much everybody's and very enmeshed, and grandma, aunts, uncles, mom, dad, we're all together all the time every weekend. And I had a very dominant grandmother who was very much into looks, very much into looks. So I heard a lot of that growing up, be polished, look like this, look like this. So then through the aging process, that I had to really check myself and make sure I was very connected to my own self love, and
Mhm.
realizing it's not the garage. It's not this outer part of who I am. That's not why people like me. That's not why people want to be around me. So that took definitely a lot of work. And I still find it pop in sometimes
Mhm.
when I'm having to do a video or having to do something like that. It's like, oof, it can be hard because, as everybody says, what we look like on the outside, I don't feel that way on the inside.
Yeah,
you know, I don't
right.
feel that way at all. So yeah, that is and I think being in the public eye is
Mhm.
harder because we are putting ourselves out there in such a big way, and we're at risk of being judged.
Yes.
And the bigger, that my podcast gets, and all the things that I put out in the world, the greater the risk of judgment. And when people do judge, again, would these people really, and I don't get a lot of it, but even the one or two times that I'll get something, I'm like, okay, are you going to take that personally or not? Because if I take it personally, it could throw me. And I'm like, I don't want to do that. So
Yeah.
I've learned to let that go. But it's strengthened, again, I turn inward. It's strengthened my connection with myself.
Mhm.
Um, just as I don't mean as I age, but as I just go down my life journey, it's just,
Mhm.
I've had to learn how to stay really strong with Michelle, who's on the inside. But yeah, that is when it comes up. I think being in business, having to be on a stage or on video or Zoom or whatever is when it hits me. What about you?
I would say similar. Similarly, I feel about, I don't think it's so much about feeling judged, but it's more for me that feeling of, I still want people to think I'm relevant or pretty or
Mhm.
attractive somehow from that place, because when I was younger, I operated from that place. You learn how to, and it's not something I'm proud to admit, but in my teens and my 20s, that was a big thing. So it shows up there. It definitely shows up for me too, or I struggle I struggle when I'm in the car and like my patience with stuff. I have this incredible patience with my clients, with my friends, with my loved ones, with my animals, with myself most of the time, but sometimes not so much there. But when I'm in the car, I'm not even from New Jersey, but I live in New Jersey. I'm a New Jersey asshole. I can be, I'm gonna get killed because I'll get out of my car and I'll go to the car behind me and I'll be like, what is your problem? Like literally, if I'm off, if I'm feeling off, if I'm
Yeah.
feeling really centered, I'm like, oh, they have some issues today, send them love. All like other times I'm like, F you, get off my back, So it shows up there. Where else? Oh, those are probably the two biggest ways. Yeah, I think.
Yeah. I feel you.
Yeah. I know it's interesting. And maybe in some relationships, I think as we age also, our relationships change, our friendships
Yeah.
change. Um, People come and go out of our lives and it feels uncomfortable. And it's easy to get into that taking it personally as like, did I do something wrong? Something wrong with me? Instead of just honoring, things are changing and we're growing in
Yeah.
different ways and that's life and wish them well. So that can be a challenge sometimes too.
That's really good. I love that car analogy.
Yeah. Oh God. Where do you live?
I live in Charlotte, North Carolina.
Oh, you do. Okay.
Yeah.
You guys are a little nicer in North Carolina.
They're all Northerners down here, though.
I know. I know.
It's like I don't think I know anyone that's from here. Everyone's from the north, or maybe a few people from Florida and California, but most people are we're all Northerners down here out
So
there.
that's one of the beautiful things of aging. Speaking of aging, I didn't expect our
Hmm.
conversation to go towards aging, but we're both in a similar state.
Yeah.
And there is such a lovely opening that happens as
Mhm.
we age, isn't there?
Yeah.
It's like I think I did fear when I was younger that I'm going to peak at 40, I'm going to be at my prime, and then by 45, if I haven't done enough with my life, I think I was close to 40 when I wrote my first book, and the other two I was almost 50, and I'm about to write another one. I don't feel like I really peaked. I feel like I'm peaking now, I guess.
Yes.
Or maybe there's no peak. Maybe that whole thing is an illusion, but it's very different than how I thought it would be. And I think that's partly because of the collective consciousness of, age and time and so forth, and kind of correcting that energy about death is preceding us and there's nothing left. But there's this beautiful opening of space and time and getting to know yourself in a different way. And have you experienced all of that?
Oh my gosh, yes. I
Yeah.
don't care as much like I'll
Yeah.
go out and I'll wear something that I think I don't really care. I won't have makeup on and my gray will be coming in and I'm like, I just don't care. I just truly do not care. And I notice if I'm around people that are younger than me, they're like, "Oh, you're going to go out." I'm like, I just really don't care. Like it again, if someone judges me, I don't care.
I was just saying to my girlfriend, like I could care less so much that again, I'm either going to get shot in a car in New Jersey, or they're going to put me in like a crazy person's house because I don't care at all. Like it's so severe though. I think it's the hormones a little bit. Like I don't care about anything at all anymore. It's really weird. Like dangerously so. I need
Yeah.
a person to check me. It's like maybe you should care a little bit more about that.
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
know, but it's freeing too.
It's so freeing. I mean, I would have never left the house sometimes with like, again, no makeup on or hair, like whatever. And I'm like, not that I go out looking horrible by any means, but it's like, I don't care if I don't have makeup on and my hair is wet. I'm going to run to the grocery store. Before I would never have done that.
Yeah.
So,
Well, you're a
yeah.
beautiful woman, so
Aw, thank you.
yeah.
Thank you. Yeah.
It's interesting talking about this and how we change and evolve and so forth. Even
Hmm.
thinking about the superficial things, which we've
Hmm.
been discussing here, which are important, I think, to discuss for our mental health, for our emotional health. All of that is about aligning ourselves to our soul, all
Yeah.
of it. We are constantly in conversation and dialogue with ourselves about who we are, how we want to feel, how we want to live, and how we want to be perceived because we are engaging with the world, and it's a very, very interesting topic that I think holds a lot of people captive and keeps them stuck. And other people, it can be one of the most liberating things in their lives. And uh, I don't know the psychology about that, but
Yeah.
To be honest, when I look at women who are our age or younger or older and they have that beautiful silver hair, I think it is gorgeous. I have a girl crush on the 84-year-old woman on the Great British Baking Show, Prue.
Yeah.
I think she is beautiful. I love all of
Yes.
her lines. I love her style. She's got great hair, but yet I haven't come to that place for myself yet.
Yeah.
Of even though I don't care, there is part of me obviously that still cares. I haven't come to that place yet for myself. Like, just let all the gray come out. You
Yeah.
know, I'm still doing the Herbitant. Like, are you at that place yet where?
I can't believe you brought this up. I just had this conversation. Was it yesterday or the day before? And we were talking about that. And someone said, "Oh my gosh, I was on a Zoom call yesterday with one person that was my age. Some of the girls all work for me, but the other girl was in her she's in her late 20s, and she was like, she used to dye her hair gray. I'm like, you're in your 20s. So the other two, another person that works with me and I run the call, and I'm like, I really thought about it because I think it's beautiful, but I'm not there
Beautiful.
yet.
I want to be there. I think I'm working my way there because I do find it very beautiful.
It
And
is.
it is. And it's like we are the elders now, we're coming into that. And it's,
It's a statement, right? Like when
yeah,
you see, like, this 84-year-old, like there's a statement. It's striking. It's really beautiful.
it
It really is. I said, maybe when I'm 70, I'll do that. I just never contemplated any of this, but now, yeah, being in my 50s, it's like I'm thinking about all this and
yeah.
I want to live authentically. And that area is one that I'm still not quite there.
Yeah.
Not quite, but I'm close.
Yeah, it's interesting. And again, going back to that mind piece of how we judge, and
Yeah.
the judger that's always present. It's amazing how we convince ourselves all for the protective reason, even no matter how much healing work we've done, inner child work, consciousness
Mhm.
work, present,
Yeah.
like we're always kind of protecting ourselves, aren't we? Of like, I need to
Mhm.
feel enough. I need to feel valued. I need to feel right, correct somehow to keep my worth up, my ego satisfied in some way.
Right.
And I think every living being does this. Maybe I'm wrong, but you're the expert. So what do you
No,
think?
you're the expert.
We're both experts, but
We're
I'm not
both
an
the
official
experts.
therapist.
No, I do think that. Yeah, I just think it's a journey. All of us are on our own unique journey. And when it comes to self-worth, what do we all have to pay attention to? What do we need to build our own self-worth? And speaking of the Botox, yeah, I was still thinking about the Botox when you asked me that question.
Oh,
Gua sha.
ah,
You use the gua sha?
that's the thing to do. No,
Yeah, because I don't do Botox either.
you do the gua sha.
It's that stone
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I
with
have one. I
oil.
just never used it.
Oh, go to YouTube and check out all the videos on it. It's really like I really do notice a difference.
Okay.
Uh-huh. With the
Yeah.
oil.
See, to me, that's something healthy. It's like
I
it's
think
helping our, yeah.
I don't have a problem with that. I don't have a
No.
problem with that. Again, if somebody wants to do all the Botox and lip injections and all that, that's your thing. That's fine. But I would invite them to ask themselves, like, who, how would you feel about yourself if you didn't do that?
Mm-hmm.
Are you more than what's on the outside? Because when we try to keep up with only the exterior, the garage for the soul that's meant to age, I'm not saying we can't age, in a graceful way, but that's hard to keep up.
It's a full-time job.
Really hard. I can't even imagine. So
Yeah.
I find it's a lot about acceptance. And I look in the mirror and I go, okay, that's a new wrinkle. Okay. There it is.
Yeah,
I'm
but
going to
what's
hit
a
that with
wrinkle?
my
It's
gua
just
sha.
it's just the line, it's like we've given it so much power, all this stuff, and
Yeah.
it's just a line. It's just a little puffy. It's like it means
Well,
nothing, right?
and when you think about why you like someone, like I have a friend that is overweight. She's one of my closest friends, and she'll say to me, "Oh, I just lost 10 pounds." I'm like, "Oh, great." Or I lost 20 pounds. I'm like, "Great." I'm like, I'm sorry. I didn't notice because I realized like for years, she's been struggling with her weight and working to lose weight, and she'll gain and lose and gain and lose. Or she'll say, "God, I just gained 20 pounds." And I look at her, I'm like, "I'm so sorry. I never notice."
Mm,
And we talked about it the last time we were together. And I said, "I've known you like 27 years." I said, "I've never noticed because when I'm with you, I feel and see something more than your physical body.
Mhm.
And I sat there and I was like, it's so interesting because I don't really notice.
Mhm.
And it's not that I'm not noticing her. It's like I'm with her and it's the energy that we feel from someone else. That's why someone is attracted to us
Right.
because of the energy. It's not the physical appearance because that will get you in the door. That's great. You can get in the door if you're wearing the great outfit and you got the makeup right and all that crap. But you know what? It gets you in the door. It doesn't mean you're going to make the friends, you're going to get the job, or all of those things. You've got to be yourself. That's why people are connected to us. That's why people follow us on social media or want to be friends with us.
Yes, it's so true. And also I'm always thinking about how tolerant isn't the right word, but just like you're saying, when I'm around someone, I'm not actively judging them. I'm actually probably more prone to judge if they have like excessive
The big,
yeah, excessive things going on that don't look natural. Then I love like I wouldn't say I find like everyone or a lot of people attractive, but when I get to know someone or when I'm with somebody, I there's
oh,
so much beauty. Oh my God, it's so much beauty that I can barely tolerate it because of who they are.
yes.
And we're so gracious in that way with other people. And I think again, going back to the beginning of this conversation, learning how to be present and be in our heart and lead from our heart and apply that to ourselves.
Yes.
That's so important for our healing is just, can you imagine if everyone here truly loved themselves and was accepting of themselves and walked around not trying to hide or feeling shameful or whatever? It would be like a million little light fairies just running around the globe, you
Right.
know? And that's what I want for us.
That's why I wrote the whole book, The Adult Chair, because I wanted a manual to teach people how to love themselves because I did not love myself growing up. I did not. I was so hard on myself. And I said, I got to find a way to break this down. What is this manual? Like, give me the steps to do it. So that's why that's what The Adult Chair is all about. It's
That's great. I
the,
can't wait to read it.
yeah. Well,
Yeah.
the book comes out May 6th,
Oh,
but
okay.
it's pre-order now. But yeah, because who doesn't have a hard time with that?
I have a yearbook. I don't anymore actually because it got lost in a flood, but I had a yearbook where I literally had a pen and I scratched out my whole entire picture violently with
Oh
the pen.
my.
I know
Oh,
that's how hard because why? Because my cheeks were too puffy or my hair was too high or I didn't like my shirt. Who knows?
yeah.
And I wouldn't even say like I hated myself, but like you just shared, very hard on myself.
Yeah.
And now I know, that young one was struggling for deep connection and
Totally.
affection and feeling the feelings of belonging in a healthy environment and that kind of stuff. I mean, I have so much compassion for her, but
Mhm.
we're not the only ones. And so I'm very grateful that you wrote that resource. I'm working on my new book as well, but I don't have the
Awesome.
deal yet, so I can't share anything about it. But in a similar fashion, just more healing work. So what I love about you, and just to remind listeners, whether you work with Michelle or myself, there are so many resources out there now,
Yes.
so
Yep.
many. And sometimes yes, we can't afford a one-on-one, but like Michelle's saying, we have podcasts, there's courses, there's books, there's meditations, there's group work, there's all kinds of things. And so please use them. I use them. I mean, I have a whole team of people for me,
Same.
right?
Same. I can't
Yeah,
make it without my team.
exactly.
Yeah.
So, Michelle, I'm so grateful for our conversation. It was fun
It
and
was. Thank you.
informative and inspiring, I think, for a lot of people. And so I really appreciate your time sharing with us today.
I
Yeah.
thank you so much. And I appreciate you and all that you do, all your books.
Thank
Congratulations on the next book coming out.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Yep. And to everyone listening, take good care of yourself. And you will find all of Michelle's information and mine in our show notes. So please reach out, get her free resource for the inner child work, and just take care. We'll see you real soon.